Hello, my friends. How are you? I hope you're doing very, very well on this moon day. Today is Monday for me, but I hope you're having an excellent day whenever you're watching this. My name is Mariah. If you haven't seen any of my videos before, very, very warm welcome here. If you have, then a super warm welcome back. Thank you for coming back because the stuff that I talk about is a little crazy, but I love to talk about it and I'm really glad you're here. You're also seeing me in like a higher quality than probably you've ever seen me before, unless you see me in real life. So we'll see what happens there. My wonderful fiance gave me my birthday present early because my birthday is in December, but I wanted to just start shooting now, seeing how it goes, right? And I have a little microphone friend, so hopefully I'm not yelling too much, but like, look, he has a little hat. He's so cute. And the camera is really cute too. So this video is mostly for me to test it out, but I also wanted to start a little series of going through the Gnostic texts with you because I think that reading the texts as an alternative to the Bible per se is really educational, really informative, and really eye-opening when you see the language used to describe certain things, and it is a lot to wade through. I can't admit that I fully read all of the texts back to front, but there are some that I read over and over again because they are absolutely amazing and the language that they use is incredible. And I find that it's probably the best entryway into Gnosticism is starting with these texts, other than, you know, watching my other videos, obviously, other than doing your own research. And also checking out Mr. John Lamlausch. Shout out to him. His work changed my life. I do have his book. I gave it to a friend to borrow, but I will display it the next time I have it. But I wanted to do a little, probably I'm not playing into my mic too much. I wanted to do a little intro of what the Nag Hammadi Codices really are. So they essentially are books that I would imagine are more contemporary with the Bible than, you know, other texts we may have. I'm reading here that they were estimated to be written between the 2nd and 4th century AD. So we're not going into like, you know, BC time and even that like before Christ time. Like that's crazy that we use that time, you know, and people say common era now, but it started as before Christ. So anyway, so these are books essentially that were left out of the Bible. They have some of the same writers, Thomas, Mark, I think, I don't remember. Either way, there's a ton of information. We're going to get through it all, but I just wanted to start with this little itty bitty tidbit. So they were rediscovered in 1945 in these little clay, like, what do you call it? Like a little jar, I guess, where a family, I believe this is how the story goes, a family was looking for kindling for a fire, and I believe the child, one of the kids, found these texts and they were going to burn it. Now, I don't know if that's just the story that they're telling us and are telling us to go with, or if that actually is the story. And anyways, they were rediscovered in 1945 in Egypt. They are called the Nag Hammadi Codices because they were found in Nag Hammadi in Egypt. So already we're starting off pretty interesting. The texts were written in Coptic, and the first translation wasn't until 1977. That's crazy. So my favorite book, the book that I reference all the time and I always point people towards, is called On the Origin of the World. Now, something else that's really cool is you can just go to, I don't really know if you can see that very well. You can go to gnosis.org. I will include the link, but you can go to gnosis.org at any time, whenever you want. There's a different translations of all the books. All the books are on there, and I don't know if they have every single translation, but they do have multiple for some of them. And so this one, On the Origin of the World, this is the Barnstone and Meyer translation. I like this translation because they have like, I know it's probably mirrored for you, but they have like subheadings, so you can kind of know at which point of the story we're talking about, because there is another version of it that doesn't have those little, you know, headers where, you know, okay, this is what we're talking about at this time. It's just, this book is really long. I'm not going to read it all, obviously, to you, but I will include it below, and I highly suggest you check it out on your own because it's very interesting. And why I like this book so much on the origin of the world is because it's essentially an alternative Genesis. And if you're like me and you have a Christian background, I grew up in the church more or less. I went to a private Christian school until I left it in the middle of grade 8 and said, see you later, fuck you, bye. And, you know, but even throughout high school, I had a little bit, you know, I went to a youth group and things like that. And, you know, you really, I mean, Genesis is, pretty much everybody's read Genesis. If you have a Christian background, you've read Genesis. It's the first book. You may not get much farther than Genesis, but it's the start, right? So that's why most people have read it. And I find that when you go through on the origin of the world, and there's another book, I can't remember the exact name of it, but I'll include it in this little series, that, you know, the names that you know are mentioned, the garden is mentioned, the snake is mentioned, you know, all of these things are mentioned, and you're like, wait, am I getting a watered down, twisted version when I read, you know, whatever kind of Bible you may have at home? And yeah, the answer is yes, you are. So, okay. So let's start. I love how this text starts. So the little header here is called Before the Beginning. Since everyone, the gods of the world and people, says that nothing existed prior to chaos, I shall demonstrate that they are all mistaken, since they do not know the origin of chaos and its root. Here is the demonstration. How agreeable it is to all people to say that chaos is darkness. But actually, chaos comes from a shadow that has been called darkness. The shadow comes from something existing from the beginning. So it is obvious that something in the beginning existed before chaos came into being, and that chaos came after what was in the beginning. I love that. I like this book is like, isn't it obvious? Isn't it like, duh? Like, honestly, it makes me laugh. And okay, so the second head, I'm really going to be skipping through here. It's super long, but I just want to highlight the coolest parts of it and really encourage you to go check it out on your own because it's awesome. The next little header is called Birth of Sophia. I also call her the Aeon Sophia just to differentiate between the normal name. And the forces of darkness. After the nature of the immortals was completed out of the infinite one, I would say maybe they're talking about the Aeons here, the creators. Then a likeness called Sophia flowed out of Pistis, which is why you'll see the Pistis Sophia also used in this text, with the wish that something should come into being like the light that had first existed. Immediately her wish appeared as a heavenly likeness with an incomprehensible greatness. This came between the immortals and those who came into being after them, like what is above. It was a veil separating people from the things above. So if you haven't seen any of my videos before, right now, the text is referring to Sophia's fall from the pleroma, this creation to make humanity be the best that we can be, although we have not been in the past. And basically, you know, immediately her wish appeared is her creative power at an instant, right? Like that's just the creativity of the Aeons is instant like that. Now, the eternal realm of truth has no shadow within it because of the immeasurable light is everywhere within it. That's in the pleroma. From it appeared a power over the darkness, and the powers that came into being afterward called the shadow the limitless chaos. The shadow appeared in the abyss, which is derived from Pistis, whom we have mentioned, Pistis Sophia. The shadow perceived that there was one stronger than it. It was jealous, and when it became self-impregnated, it immediately bore envy. Who is mentioned in the Old Testament as being jealous? Who? And from it, and the powers that came into being afterward called the shadow the limitless chaos. From it every kind of deity was brought forth, one after the other, along with the whole place. Consequently, the shadow too is subsequent to what was in the beginning. Did I just say the same thing again? I think I did. Either way, maybe I had to really drive that point home for you. It was jealous and it bore envy. Since that day, the principle of envy has appeared in all of the aeons and their worlds. But envy was found to be an aborted fetus, word for word I'm reading here, without any spirit in it. It became like the shadows in a great watery substance. So, I mean, I'm skipping a little ahead here, but we're talking about the demiurge. If you have any Gnostic background, you'll know that this envious, jealous being that came about as an accident but is still derived from the Aeon Sophia is Yaldabaoth, is the demiurge, is the Old Testament God, is Yahweh. Oops, Jehovah. All the same motherfucker. And even he's already called an aborted fetus once, and we're just on the first. Like, this text is so long, I'm not going to get into the whole thing, and because I could go on forever, truly. But they call him as useless after birth, as one who bears a little child fall. Likewise, the matter that came into being from the shadow was cast aside. Just like tried to get rid of it. Sophia tried to get rid of it. Tried to get rid of him and say, you know what, go over here and like do your thing, but don't bother me. And obviously he didn't listen. Pistis came and appeared over the matter of chaos, which was cast off like an aborted fetus, in case you don't get the point yet, since there was no spirit in it, because he was made outside of the pleroma. He was a complete accident. And Pistis Sophia can, like, I mean, they're I wouldn't call them all-knowing beings, but they have a much broader scope of knowing than you or I would have. And so Pistis Sophia saw Yaldabaoth moving in the depths of the water, and she said to him, "Youth, pass over here," because he was brand new, which is interpreted as Yaldabaoth, and that's why he has the name Yaldabaoth. The ruler, Yaldabaoth, is ignorant of the power of Pistis. He did not see her face, but he saw in the water the likeness that spoke with him, and from that voice he also called himself Yaldabaoth. He's not very smart. He's not very smart. And the perfect ones, aka the ones from the pleroma, you and I, real humans, call him Ariel, because he is like a lion. After he became to possess authority over matter, Pistis Sophia withdrew up to her light. So, yeah, so at this point, this is like before we get to the garden. This is all before that. This is human prehistory. And right now, Yaldabaoth is thinking that he's the only one. He's blind, actually. That's why he can't see up. He can only see down into the waters. And he's thinking he's the only one. For some reason, he's just born jealous. And, you know, he's saying that you won't talk to anybody else. There's only me. I'm jealous, you know, and who does that sound like? And that's in the Old Testament, you know what I mean? They admit to it right there. Okay, so then there's a lot about him and the 7 heavens of chaos. I've mentioned this on my Twitter, that it's 7 heavens and you want to make it past 7, hopefully, into the 8th, which is the realm of Sophia. And, you know, Yaldabaoth can create, because he does also come from Sophia. He does have the ability to create. Doesn't mean he can create life, and he can create things that are, you know, they're just not ensouled, essentially. They don't have the soul, they don't have the spirit like we do. Okay, yeah, so he's a troublemaker, he's disturbing stuff. And eventually, this is common Gnostic knowledge, but eventually he creates the Archons. Those are like his little workers. And some of the Archons defected to Sophia's side because they saw her power and her beauty, and they recognized that, and they're able to defect. They have their own free will as well, you know, like you and I do. And then this one of the Archons defected, and this caused him to gain light, to gain the light of Sophia, like how humans have it naturally. It can be given. It can be given to them, which is, you don't really hear that, hey? So this Archon is named Sabaoth. He was made by the demiurge, but he comes to support Sophia and her daughter, Zoe, which I would argue is just another split of her. So this little quote: when Sabaoth received the place of rest because of his repentance, Pistis also gave him her daughter Zoe with great authority so that she might inform him about everything that exists in the 8th heaven of Sophia. Yaldabaoth retaliates by creating death. Thanks for that, bro. God, he just sucks. Yaldabaoth realizes his mistake. When the chief creator, Yaldabaoth, saw the likeness of Pistis in the waters, he grieved, especially when he heard her voice, which was like the first voice that called to him out of the water. When he knew that this was done to the one who named him, he groaned and was ashamed on his account of his transgression. And when he actually knew that an enlightened, immortal human, I'm not pointing to me, I mean like all humans, including me, but including you. Where was I? Existed before him, he was greatly disturbed because previously he had said to all the gods and their angels, I am God and there is no other God but me, for he had been afraid that they might know that another existed before him and condemn him. But he, like a fool, despised the condemnation and acted recklessly and said, if something exists before me, let it appear so we might see its light. And immediately look, light came from the 8th heaven above, Sophia's, and passed through all the heavens of earth. He saw this, he was amazed, he was ashamed, because he's wrong, he's just wrong. And the light appeared, and all the Archons saw it, and they were disturbed. They were like, you told us you were the only one. You told us you had the most power. And he's like, oh, sorry, forgot to mention my mom, right? Okay, and then we have some stuff about Eros and Psyche, which is very interesting. The woman followed the earth, marriage followed the woman, reproduction followed marriage, and death followed reproduction. I think that is an interesting little quote. The creation of paradise. The creation of plants, animals, and heavenly orbs. The creation of humankind. Now, humankind was created before, right? The immortal human of light. And Yaldabaoth thought he could make his own human. Now, there is another, like, I don't know if that's the first time you've heard that, but I've heard it before in certain mystery cults who make homunculuses, I think that's how you say it, I don't really say that word out loud very much, that basically try to create a human from clay, but because he's not ensouled, can't really do much other than what he's like inscribed to do. So that, I don't know, this is not the only text that mentions that. The authorities, the Archons, received knowledge necessary to create people. Sophia Zoe, who was with Sabaoth, the Archon who defected, anticipated them and laughed at their decision. God love her. Because they were blind. In ignorance, they created him, this human him. They're creating man, essentially, a male. They created him against themselves. They do not know what they do. Because of this, she anticipated them. She created her human being first in order that he might tell their fashioned body how to scorn them and thus escape them. Now, the birth of the instructor occurred this way. When Sophia let a drop of light fall, it floated on the water. Immediately, a human being appeared, being androgynous. She molded that drop first as a female body. Afterwards, she molded it with the body in the likeness of the mother who appeared, and she finished it in 12 months. An androgynous human being was conceived, whom the Greeks call Hermaphrodite, while the Jews call his mother Eve of life, that is, the instructor of life. Her child is the creature who is Lord. So this is still like, it gets a little convoluted, but they're basically, talking about the creation of humans and kind of going back a little bit. The meaning, okay. Afterwards, the authorities called it the beast, the first created female, in order to lead their fashioned bodies, their males, astray. The meaning of the beast is the instructor, for it was found to be wiser than all beings, the snake in the garden. Moreover, Eve is the first virgin who gave birth without a man. She is the one who functioned as her own midwife. And we can see in nature now that women don't necessarily need men to birth. We can essentially copy our own cells and create a clone and birth the clone. It's crazy. Certain animals do it. And I think it's been done with sheeps before. I'm not sure. Song of Eve. On account of this, it is said concerning her that she said, I am part of my mother, and I am the mother. I am the wife, I am the virgin. I am pregnant, I am the midwife. I am the one who comforts during labor pains. My husband produced me, and I am his mother, and he is my father and my Lord. He is my potency, and what he desires, he speaks with reason. I am becoming, but I have borne a lordly man. Cosmic rulers mold Adam. The cosmic rulers are the Archons. So, like I said, they tried to make their own version, and they left him because they can't give life. They left him, and I quote, as a lifeless vessel, since he had taken the form like an aborted fetus, like his daddy, with no spirit in him. Regarding this, when the chief ruler remembered the word of Pistis, he was afraid that the true human might come into his fashioned body and rule over it. Because of this, he left his fashioned body, Adam, the original man, 40 days without soul. You guys got to read this book. Like, it's crazy. And he withdrew and left him. Talk about abandonment issues. But on the 40th day, Sophia Zoe sent her breath into Adam, who was without soul. He began to move upon the earth, but he could not stand up. Now when the 7 rulers came and saw him, they were very much disturbed, the Archons. They walked up to him and seized him, and the chief ruler, Yaldabaoth, said to the breath within him, Who are you, and from where have you come here? It answered and said, I came through the power of the human for the destruction of your work. When they heard, they glorified him, Adam, who had been ensouled by Sophia Zoe. They called that day the day of rest because they rested themselves from their troubles. Interesting that the Archons are attributed to having a day of rest. No comment. After that day of rest, Sophia sent Zoe, her daughter, who was called Eve. See, it gets a little messy in here. As an instructor to raise up Adam, in whom there was no soul, so that those whom he would produce might become vessels of the light. When Eve saw her male partner cast down, she pitied him, and she said, Adam, live. Rise upon the earth. Immediately her word became an accomplished deed. For when Adam rose up, immediately he opened his eyes. When he saw her, he said, You will be called the mother of the living because you are the one who gave me life. A very opposite to what we see in the Genesis of today, where it was man who were created first and then taken the rib, and that's how you made a female. Well, let me tell you something about the Archons and Yaldabaoth. They don't have creative powers. They take stories and invert them, essentially, and pervert them. And I think it was shout out to Chromio. I think he said that to me recently on Twitter. And it's funny that we see this story as the total opposite, and it's almost like the Genesis that is popularized is written from the perspective of the Archons and written by the Archons and sanctioned by the demiurge. Weird. And then the authorities were informed that their fashioned body was alive and had risen, and they were very much disturbed. So the Archons are getting very disturbed, and I love it. They sent 7 archangels, Archons, to see what had happened. They came to Adam, and when they saw Eve speaking with him, they said to one another, What is this enlightened woman? For truly she resembles the likeness that appeared to us in the light. Now come, let us seize her and cast our seed into her, rape her. They rape her. Cast our seed into her so that when she is polluted, she will not be able to ascend to her light, but those whom she bears will serve us. But let us not tell Adam because he is not from us. Rather, let us bring a stupor over him asleep and suggest to him in his sleep that she came into being from his rib so that the woman may serve and he may rule over her. That's like a period moment. That is a gotcha moment. If you're still reading the Bible and you take it super seriously and say, this is the word of God, it's not the word of God in the sense that you think. It's the word of the demiurge. You follow a false god. And his archons are disturbed all the time. And he's an aborted fetus with no soul. And if that's who you want to follow, great. But that's not how you nourish your soul. Let's say that's not how you nourish your soul. Afterward, Then Eve, since she existed as a power, laughed at their false intention. She darkened their eyes and secretly left her likeness there with Adam. She entered into the tree of knowledge and remained there. She became a tree. We see Greek myths all the time of dyads, and nymphs and women who are of nature in this way. They pursued her, and she revealed to them that she had entered the tree and had become the tree. When the blind ones fell into a great fear, they ran away. They suck. This guy's got no balls. Afterward, when they sobered up from the stupor, they came to Adam, and when they saw the likeness of that woman with him, they were troubled, thinking that this was the true Eve, and they acted recklessly. They came to her and seized her and raped her again. They did it deceitfully, defiling her not only naturally, but also abominably, first defiling the seal of her voice, which had spoken to them, saying, "What is it that exists before you?" They meant to defile those who might say at the consummation of the age that they had been born of a true human by means of the word. And they were deceived, not knowing that they had defiled their own body. It was a likeness that the authorities and their angels defiled in every way. Now, humans, especially women, are meant to create through our word. And we do create that way. But before real birth as we see it now between man and woman, when there was only women here, we created just with our voice in conjunction with the dream of the Aeon Sophia, our planet. Eve bears the children of the Archons. And so that combination there with Eve and the Archons who raped her is how she gave birth to Cain and Abel. Now, I'm skipping a little bit here. It's the Archons who trick Adam and Eve, by the way. I read it in here. And she did eat from the tree, but because she knew that it was an apple. And, the Archons told her, don't eat from the tree, because to make her jealous. Then came the one who was wiser than all the creatures, who was called the beast. Have you eaten from the tree? So the Archons basically just confuse them a lot, give them a lot of mixed messages, because they were jealous of Adam and his, relationship with Eve, and the fact that he had the light of Eve within him because she ensouled him. Phoenixes, water animals, bulls of Egypt. So that's a little interesting part. Error and ignorance enter human history because of the Archons. Thank you again for that. Nat. Now I come to the main points about immortal humankind. I shall explain why the beings belonging to the immortal human are here. There are, consequently, it talks about races here, which is interesting. Consequently, 4 races exist. And yeah, okay. So this is at the end. I skipped like a lot in the middle because it's very wordy. I would really suggest that you read it on your own. I even would suggest that you read a little bit at a time and like absorb it and then come back to it. Okay, so this second last header is called The Consummation of the Age and the Apocalypse. Before the consummation of the age, the whole place will be shaken by great thunder. Then the rulers, the Archons, will lament, crying out on account of their death. The angels will mourn for their human beings, and the demons will weep for their times and seasons, and their people will mourn and cry out on account of their death. Then the age will begin, and they will be disturbed. Their kings will be drunk from the flaming sword, and will make war against one another, so that the earth will be drunk from the blood that is poured out. And the seas will be troubled by that war. Then the sun will darken and the moon will lose its light. The stars of heaven will disregard their course, and great thunder will come out of the power that is above all the powers of chaos, the place where the firmament of the woman, the Sophia, is situated. When she has created the first work, she will take off her wise flame, wisdom is Sophia in Greek, she will take off her wise flame of afterthought and will put on irrational wrath. Yeah, baby. Then she will drive out the gods of chaos, whom she had created together with the chief creator, Oopsie. She will cast them down to the abyss. They will be wiped out by their own injustice, for they will become like the mountains that blaze of fire, and they will consume one another until they are destroyed by their chief creator. When he destroys them, he will turn against himself and destroy himself until he ceases to be. And their heavens will fall upon one another, and their powers will burn. Their realms will also be overthrown, the Archons' realms. And the chief creator's heaven will fall and split in two. Likewise, his stars in their sphere will fall down to the earth. I think this is satellites, to be honest. And the earth will not be able to support them. Archons can't live here. They have to work through humans. They will fall down to the abyss, and the abyss will be overthrown. Now this is the very end of it. I can't really see, but the light is saved. Yay. And the Gnostics return home. The light will cover the darkness and obliterate it. It will become like something that never existed, and the source of the darkness will be dissolved, and the deficiency will be plucked out at its root, aka the creation of the demiurge in the first place is the deficiency. I've talked about the deficiency before. It's Sophia falling into the galaxy, into the Milky Way galaxy, without her male counterpart, because she kind of was imagining a solution for humanity to thrive without him. Oopsie. I mentioned that in other videos. If that is also very interesting to you, check out John Lamlash's work for sure. The deficiency will be plucked out at its root and thrown down to the darkness, and the light will withdraw up to its root, and the glory of the unconceived will appear, and it will fill all the eternal realms when the prophetic utterances and the writings of those who are rulers, Archons, are revealed and are fulfilled by those who are called perfect. Those who were not perfected in the unconceived Father will receive their glories in their realms and in the kingdoms of the immortals, but they will not ever enter the kingless realm. Basically, Archons stay with Archons. For it is necessary that everyone enter the place from which he has come, each one by his deeds, and his gnosis will reveal his nature. Truly. Truly, you know? And that's the whole point at the beginning of the text in the first place is Sophia even says, she says, youth pass over here. That is Yaldabaoth's name, is youth go this way. Like, you were a mistake. You were just born. You're like an aborted fetus. She wasn't going to get rid of him. I honestly am not even sure she could, but she was going to put him in a space, in a, you know, kind of maybe a quarantine where he could kind of do his own thing, make his fake carousels and have his things that are not ensouled. But instead he chose to become jealous of humanity, become envious of humanity, which means to take away what we have, and essentially to destroy Sophia and us and that relationship that we have with her as our Mother Earth planet. Now, it doesn't say all the Mother Earth planet stuff in there, but that is found in some other primary sources, like against Heresies by Iranaeus. I do have a video on that. I will link it below. And yeah, I just think that on the origin of the world, and both translations, because the translations are a little different, is very poignant today, because when you read it and you go, wait a minute, that is in Genesis, and that guy is saying that he is the only one, you'll have no other God but me. But then you read this text and it's saying, well, actually, no, that guy's a fraud. He can't create life in the first place. And he actually tried to make Adam, but couldn't give him a soul and left him for dead for 40 days. And Sophia Zoe, the daughter, I would say the mitosis split daughter cell, had to ensoul him and give him his soul. And that's why she is called the mother of life. And even in that, there's a dialogue, there's a discourse of the Archons, the rulers, saying to each other, I guess, that we will create a stupor over Adam and make him think that the woman Eve comes from him. We're going to make him think that so he doesn't get carried away and wonder where Eve is from or why she's magical or why she can just turn into a tree or why the instructor is telling her the right thing and, you know, why she can trust to be here on Earth, why she doesn't have to listen to the Archons. And several times she like laughs at the Archons. She's like, ha, you losers, you guys don't know anything. You're freaking stupid, you know? And, you know, they may be stupid, but they certainly know how to put a wrench in plans. And we're still dealing with the effects of the Archons today. So I would say I'm gonna stop it there. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think about On the Origin of the World in the Nag Hammadi Codices. Again, I am going to include it. And I also hope you enjoyed this new camera, microphone. I hope that it's okay. I hope it looks good. I would imagine it looks at least a little better than my iPhone. And yeah, I'm going to make this a series of talking about the Gnostic texts that I find very poignant and important, especially in the context of a Christian background. And this is not Gnostic Christianity. There is no such thing. No such thing. I have videos about that. I'll get into it again. But yeah, if you would like me to talk about any specific texts, let me know in the comments or in the replies, wherever you're watching this. I will take that into consideration. But my next plan for tomorrow, or whenever I record again, is just to do my next favorite one. And then we'll go from there. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. Ciao.